So you want to get into strength training, but you just don't know how. That is why you have clicked on this video today, and that is exactly what we're going to be going over in detail in this video. My name is Toby Lively. I've been strength training now for a little over 4 years. For the first few years of that, I was completely self-taught using resources on the internet, and for the last 2 years, I have been coached by one of the top strongman coaches in the game, Big Loz. And in that time, I have learnt a lot about strength training. I've never strayed from the strength training path, and I am in it for the long haul. I love strength training. It's something that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and I want you guys to catch that same bug and get stuck in properly. Now, there are lots of things I did right getting into strength training, and there are lots of things I wish I had done differently. So I'm making this video to help you guys get started in the best possible way, no matter what choice of sport you're getting into or the reasons behind you wanting to join strength training. So sit tight, we're going to go over everything from why you want to get into strength training, what the different sports can change about your programming, the fundamentals, the background, and of course how to stay strength training over a long period of time. Now that's a lot to cover, but sit back, relax, we'll get to it all. Every Friday I do a talk like this about a given topic, so if there's any topics you want me to go into depth on, leave them in the comments below and we will do exactly that. But without further ado, let's jump into the discussion of strength training and how to get into it. So I mentioned there the reasoning behind you wanting to get into strength training, whether you want to be the world's strongest man at a very high level strongman, whether you want to be a world champion powerlifter and the best powerlifter you can be, whether you want to be at the Olympics doing Olympic weightlifting, or whether you just want to be a bit stronger so that as you age you can get up out of a chair unassisted. All of these things will change absolutely nothing about how you get into strength training. The start of strength training is going to be the same for all of these things because the fundamentals of strength training translate across all 4 of these things on any other given sport or reason behind getting into strength training. And I say that because there are 4 main movement patterns that we're going to be focusing to get strong in the strength training area, and those are some form of squat, some form of vertical press, some form of hinge, and some form of horizontal press. Now you can obviously see where these line up to the main 4 movements that people consider for strength training, being the squat, the bench press, the deadlift, and the overhead press. You can see how those track over to those 4 main movement patterns, but they don't have to be the 4 movements you choose to get started with. And that is the beauty of strength training. It is completely and utterly flexible to your goals and what you want to do. For me, I always choose those 4 main movements because they are the most common, they have the most literature on them, they have the most tutorials, help. Any PT and any gym can give you help on any of these exercises, and they're the easiest to learn. But if you have a burning desire to do a front squat instead of a back squat, you really want to do log press instead of a normal barbell overhead press, you can switch those out to meet your goals, and that is the beauty of strength training. It isn't one size fits all. It's an interesting thing that's completely flexible, and that is how I urge you to start. So instead of me going here and saying, you must learn how to deadlift, you must learn how to barbell overhead press, and that could put a lot of people off because people might come into strength training wanting to get stronger but have no interest in doing a deadlift whatsoever. This is still inclusive for you. You just need to get strong in these main 4 movement patterns, being able to squat down and stand back up in any given manner, being able to press something over your head, being able to hinge with a heavy weight, and being able to press something off of your chest. These 4 main movement patterns are what builds the foundation of strength, which you then can specify into your given sport. So once you have built the foundations for these 4 things, you can start specifying with strongman events, you can start doing the Olympic lifts, you can then get even more strong in the power lifts, you can do whatever you want. But for the first few months of strength training, you're going to be wanting to focus these 4 main movers. So how do you get started? How do you structure programming? Now, what I will say is the best way to get started with strength training is just to pick up an off-the-shelf strength program, because that is going to be the best way to keep yourself consistent and keep yourself accountable of the training. Stick with the same program for the duration, and if it doesn't work, that is when you can skip programs. Trust the process, see it through to the end. That is my main bit of advice. But if you're someone who doesn't want to have to pay for a program, doesn't like the look of any of the free ones and wants to program yourself, I'm going to talk a bit about how I structure a simple beginner strength training program. Now, what I do first and foremost is do a 4-session-a-week plan. So for me, I currently follow this plan. This is the plan I would choose to follow from the start if I could start all over again, and that would be to do a 4-day plan where you do Monday, Tuesday, then a rest, and then Thursday, Friday, and then have the weekends off. Obviously, if you have a job which doesn't allow that, or your timings are all different, just pick the days you can do, but keep it to a 4-day-a-week program based on each of the 4 main movers. So day 1's going to be a squat, day 2 is going to be your horizontal press, day 3 is going to be your hinge, and day 4 is going to be your vertical press. So obviously, if that is a normal strength training program, you're going to focus back squat on day 1, bench press on day 2, deadlift on day 3, and overhead press on day 4. But as I said, you don't have to follow those exact exercises. They are just the easiest and most consistent to get into. So what I do is pick your exercises for those, but what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't max them out straight away. For the first 4 weeks, you should be doing heavy sets of 5 to 10 reps. So the higher rep range, still fairly heavy, but getting used to that movement and reinforcing the movement pattern without pushing it too hard to the point where you're compromising form that you're still learning. Take these first 4 weeks of the program just to learn the movement and get really, really good and technical with that movement pattern, so that when we get to the next 4 weeks and the 4 weeks after that, we can start pushing the weight up and you can feel more confident with your form. So take the first 4 weeks to really practice that movement pattern. Still push it fairly heavy, but don't let that form break down. Use YouTube videos, use tutorials, get someone to help you. Do any of those things to make sure you're doing it right, and do it right for a few sets of 5 to 10 reps to make sure that every rep looks the exact same, you know what you're doing, and then by the end of the first 4 weeks, you know what to do. And then you may be thinking, what do I follow up this main mover with? What I would do is then do a back off set of some form of close variation of the lift. So let's say, for argument's sake, you chose a back squat, classic back squat as your squat down movement. Perhaps instead of just doing an extra set of back squats, you then do a very close variation, being a paused squat in the hole, or a tempo squat, controlling it down, controlling it up. This is a great way to use a lighter weight to really reinforce that form and get some good volume through the legs. That is how I would structure that, and it goes the same with, say you chose a neutral grip football bar bench press for your horizontal press. Just do the same, pause it on the chest, control it, tempo down, 5 seconds down, 3 seconds up sort of thing, at a much lighter weight as a back off, just to ingrain that movement pattern into your head. Say, for example, on the hinge day, you chose a good morning instead of a deadlift. Just do the same thing. When you finish your top set of 5 good mornings, do a set where you control it down, 3 or 4 seconds down, pause at the bottom, and then 4 or 5 seconds back up. Something like that, something where the weight is considerably less, but the time under tension and the time doing the rep is significantly more, because that is going to expose any weakness in that movement that you can then build off in your future weeks of programming. Because say that you pause it on the chest and then you just can't get it off the chest, or you stick halfway off the chest for a bench press, for example, then you know that your sticking point's either off the chest or halfway off the chest, and that you can structure your next block of training to fix that weakness. So by doing more pause work on the chest to blast through that weakness off the chest, doing some pin press work to blast through that upper sticking point if you have that. You see what I mean? It's got lots of versatility, but you're going to need to know what your weaknesses are to expose them. So by doing long tempo and pause stuff in the first few weeks of training, you get to know what your body is good at naturally and what your body is not good at naturally. So those are your main big compound movements that you're going to build the strength with, and then you need to reinforce it after that. So once you have a really big, nice strength building movement done and your accessory to expose the weaknesses, this is when you get into some more accessories. So what I like to do here is pick 1 heavy accessory and 2 pumpy accessories to finish off. So your heavy accessory on a leg day with the squat movement is something like a leg press or a hack squat or a box squat or something like that. Something where you're in a fixed plane of motion and can just get a lot of volume through the legs. On a hinge day, it might be something like a bent over row, an RDL, a Pendlay row, something like that. on a pressing day, it might be dumbbell bench. These are all heavy movers that are different from the top set, but are still going to get a lot of heavy accessory work through your body and get you used to moving heavy weights. And then the two pumpy accessories I'd finish off with are going to be something like using cables for tricep push downs, bicep curls, rows, using the cable lat pull downs, lunges, stuff that is going to be at a much lighter weight and is just purely about finishing off the muscles, getting blood through them. And if you've come from hypertrophy work, you'll be used to these sorts of exercises. These may have made up the top end of your workout back then, but now they are just a pumpy accessory used to finish off the legs or the arms or whatever movement you're training that day. It's got nothing to do with the top set other than using the same body parts and getting blood through them. But that is how I'd structure the workout. So it's not actually all that long because you're going to be working so hard under heavy weight for the first couple exercises. By the time you get to those pumpy exercises to finish off, you're going to be pretty fried. So I'd structure it like that. I'd have about 5 exercises per session, your main mover, your slight variation of your main mover, your heavy compound, and then 2 lighter pumpy compounds. And then obviously, as I said, week 1, you're starting nice and light, very manageable, learning the form. Week 2, up the weight a bit, continue to learn the form. Week 3 and 4, continue, and that goes with the accessories as well. Start off lighter, manageable, and then each week try and progress a bit more and a bit more. And then in the next 4 weeks of building it, you can start to reduce the reps on that heavy mover, like a squat, like a deadlift, something like that. You can reduce the reps down from 5 to 10 to 3 to 6, push the weight up a bit more, focus on keeping your form really, really good, and you should be able to start building some real strength in this middle block. And in this middle block, I'd keep your main heavy accessory the same, but your 2 pumpy accessories, feel free to rotate even week to week or block to block, however you want to do it. You just need to be getting some form of blood through the muscles to finish them off. So once you've done 4 weeks of 5 to 10 reps, learning the form, getting solid with it, and then 4 more weeks of 3 to 6 reps, starting to build strength now, progressively overloading each week. The final 4 weeks of a sort of 12-week training cycle are going to be 1 to 2 reps, doubles and singles, working out where your top end strength lies. So you want to start these first 2 weeks with something like heavy doubles, with the main accessory variation being something that's going to complement that really well. Still going to be way lighter, getting a lot more technique through the muscles, making sure that you recognize that technique and keep building on that form and learning that movement pattern. And then in the final 2 weeks of the block, you're going to want to do some heavy singles and figure out where your top end strength lies. Obviously, you've spent the previous 12 weeks learning the form, getting up to scratch with the exercise that you're performing, so that when you get to these last final 2 weeks of pushing it a bit further, you are safe, you are secure, and you don't push it too hard. You should know your limits when you get to this 11th and 12th week, and you should just try for a new 1 rep max that you've not done before, but you know will be within your capabilities. And once you have that 12-week block set out, you will know where to go next. You can either repeat the exact same block again, but up the weights from the start. You can program yourself based on what you did, but I'd still keep the relative same structure of sets of 5 to 10, sets of 3 to 6, and then sets of 2 or 1 in that general structure, because that is how you're going to progressively overload over 12-week cycles and keep getting better and better. But feel free to rotate the exercises, accessories, that sort of thing. So if after 12 weeks of doing a deadlift as your main hinge, you go, actually, I want to try something else and do a good morning or something, absolutely do that. But just make sure you're taking the time to learn the form and doing it safely, because that is the main thing with strength training. It is with heavy weight, so it is going to be slightly more dangerous than hypertrophy training, but you shouldn't be scared of that. You should just take the time to learn what you're doing and respect the weights. So that is pretty much how I got started in strength training, pretty much in the exact same way, structuring programs in that exact same way. And then once you're hooked on the flexibility and what you want to do with strength training, that is when you can start specifying, perhaps look into getting a coach, something like that. But for me, I spent the first 2 or 3 years strength training, programming myself based on my own goals, just getting stronger and stronger each week. And the main thing you need to remember is progressive overload. Try and add weight each week. Even if you're just adding reps each week, you're still progressively overloading. A lot of people these days love to overcomplicate training, but the secret to starting in strength training is just keep it simple. Pick a main mover, pick a close accessory, pick a heavy accessory, and 2 pumpy ones. That's all you need to do to get strong. Just make sure you do that each week, keep them the same, try and up the weight, up the reps every single week, and by the end of the program, you will be getting strong, I guarantee you. If you do it in exactly the way that I've spoken about there, you keep consistent, you keep on top of it, you go 4 days a week for 12 weeks, and you structure it in the way I've said, I promise you now, you will get stronger than when you started. Obviously, it's going to come to a point where repeating the same thing over and over again is going to fizzle out, but that is when you start looking at getting a coach, trying a different program out, trying different exercises. But certainly for the first year or 2 of strength training, this is all you need to do. It doesn't need to be hard, it doesn't need to be complicated. The only thing that needs to be hard is the work that you put in to getting stronger. You have to want to get strong to get strong. As silly as that sounds, you've got to put in the work, and I believe that you can and get it sorted and smashed. So hopefully you guys found that useful. I certainly did, going through it to remind myself how strength training doesn't need to be complicated. It can be as simple as that, especially getting started. You want to keep it simple, build a base level of strength across the board, and then you can use that in whatever way for whatever sport you like. But the main thing is build that base up, keep progressively overloading over a long period of time, and you will certainly get somewhere. You've got to put the work in. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you found that useful, please be sure to leave a like down below and comment down below if you found this useful, and also any other topics you want me to go over in one of these Friday talk videos. But anyway, I've been Toby. I hope again you did enjoy and found this useful, and I will see you in the next video.